The assembly function allows you to group P&ID symbols and lines. Those groups can be locations, skids, package units, or a hierarchical numbering system. Symbols can be assigned to multiple groups. When inserting a symbol, it will be instantly assigned to the groups. With the extended assign tag, you can add multiple other class properties to the dialog. This makes it more convenient to enter the values of properties, which have to be entered every time. In this example, you see properties for insulation and process data. Calculations with PlantExpressTools are like formula in Excel. This can be a simple string operation, as in this line annotation. When you change the insulation type and thickness, you see that the annotation will be updated. But calculations can be much more complex. In this example, the size and operational flow speed is calculated based on the flow rate and flow speed. The coordinate function is used usually with frames with numbering. Saving or clicking on the coordinate function updates the symbols. The coordinates can be saved in separate properties or together in one. The DWG export function lets you export AutoCAD P&ID and AutoCAD Plant 3D drawings as regular AutoCAD drawings with standard AutoCAD objects. You can select a single or multiple drawings. Next, you select the folder in which the drawings are supposed to be exported to and click OK. The from and to function does not only calculate the values for the pipeline segments, but also for the signal lines, and beyond this, for the pipeline and signal line groups. The from and to values can be updated either when saving the drawing or by clicking on the button in the ribbon. If we look at the data of the main line, we see that in addition to the equipment, the nozzle tags are also shown. At the second line, we see the line tag of the main line. Since both lines belong to the same line group, we see both pumps listed. With the line annotation update function, you can resolve an issue that occurs when inserting, for example, a reducer. In this example, you see that after inserting the reducer, the line annotation shows the wrong value. After invoking the update function, the text is correct. You can also link line annotations with a line. This can be useful if the line annotation isn't near the line, so the update function would link the line annotation to the wrong line. The line annotation can be linked with or without a leader. The list function lets you create arbitrary lists for PFDs and P&IDs. Here you see an example for an equipment list. For PFDs, you may want to see the process data. And here an example for the inline objects and a nozzle list of the equipment. Lists can be created in paper or model space. Nozzle check compares the size of the nozzle with the size of the line. This is important if the nozzle doesn't acquire the size from the line anymore. The dialog shows all errors in the drawing. Double-clicking zooms onto the nozzle. After the size on the nozzle or the line is fixed, the error disappears from the list. With Plant Project Manager, you can define your own drawing categories. In this example, PFDs. Project and drawing properties can be edited directly. Those properties can also be defined as selection lists, where the data can come from any data source. The file name format can be defined in any conceivable way. When creating a drawing, you can already define your initial version or revision. You can later create versions and revisions of drawings. Just select whether you want to create a version or revision and type in the change description. The version history can be seen on the Revisions tab. With the X and import function, you can X and import the project setup for the categories classes, properties, and symbol properties. After choosing export, you define a file name for the export. Next, you choose the categories you want to export. Last, you can choose to export only specific classes or properties. Let's open the file and choose Delete because we want to delete this property when importing. Now we copy the line to create a new property. At the worksheet Symbols, we filter the layer for equipment and change the color for all symbols to by block. After the import, the project setup is opened automatically, and we see the changes in the properties and the change for the color for the equipment symbols. The Properties palette allows you to structure your properties. You can create tabs and groups and choose which properties you want to see in what order. If we look at the pump data, we see the tab Equipment with the groups Equipment and Technical Data with the various properties of the equipment. We also see the group Nozzles with all the nozzles of the pump. When selecting a pipeline segment, we see various data of the segment, but also of the group. That means that you don't need Data Manager to edit the values of the pipeline group. For the valves, we see 3 tabs. One for the valve data itself, one for the pipeline segment, and one for the pipeline group. With PlantExpressTools, you can rename and copy projects. After starting the function, you select the project which is supposed to be renamed or copied. On the next page, you select the target path and change the project name. Project number and description can be typed in as well. If you copy, you can also choose to have the drawings copied as well. With the X and Import function, you can X and import selection lists, but also copy them between P&ID and 3D. After choosing Export, you select the selection list and define a file name. After that, you change the list. Next, you choose the file and the selection list for import. The result can be seen, for example, in the tag format of the pipeline segment. The selection list function enables you to fill and update selection lists of AutoCAD Plant 3D with data from external data sources with a click of a button. Here we see a selection list with numerical values. Now, let us fill the selection list with data from another data source. For that, we switch the active configuration. After the update of the selection list, we see the new list. The Symbols palette automatically shows only those symbols which are available in the active project. In the Symbols palette, you can view the symbols by category, which is comparable with the Tool palette in AutoCAD P&ID. As an alternative, symbols can be shown by class structure. You can easily change the symbol size or show the symbols with text or as a list. However, one of the main advantages is that it isn't necessary to X or import symbols or palettes to provide symbols to other users. If it is necessary to change the tag format or add another acquisition rule for existing drawings, you must update the new acquisition rules and tags. In this example, I choose a different tag format for the equipment. I also add a new acquisition rule. After leaving project setup, we click on the buttons to update the acquisition rules and tags. In both cases, we will be presented with a list of the changed objects and values. The PlantExpressTools bolt calculation feature completely replaces the bolt sets of AutoCAD Plant 3D. This feature comes with its own bolt catalog, and you can decide whether you want to use bolt sets as Plant 3D does, or to use single bolt parts like bolts, nuts, and washers. When routing a pipe, the bolt parts will automatically be inserted at any flanged connection. In this example, I use single bolt parts. The multiple connector symbols indicate the individual bolt parts. We also support special valves and connections. For example, when you have a wafer valve which uses through bolts as well as lug bolts. Or if you need to extend some of the bolts of a connection because you want to lock additional parts like the support here. To do this, you select the dialog from the context menu, add a length, and select the connection. Now we see 4 connector symbols because we have 2 different bolts. When we look at the properties, we see the various descriptions of the individual bolt parts and other information which you may want to use for your bill of material in the ISO or in Plant Reporter. You also see the way the bolt calculation added the individual lengths, which led to the overall length. The calculation also takes care of the weights of the bolt sets or bolt parts. If we create the ISO, we see the bolt parts in the bill of material. For convenience, here in a separate group, bolts. If we create a report with Plant Reporter, you can see the bolt parts as well. If you have any more questions, do not hesitate to get in touch with us.
The changelog feature allows you to log all changes made to your project data. Let's select the heat exchanger and type in some values, including the tag. Next, we have a look at the line and see that there is already a symbol which indicates a history of changes. If we click on the symbol, we get a complete history of this property. With a right click, we can restore previous values. Let's select the heat exchanger again, and we now see the history symbols too. Everything we did in CAD, we can do in Plant Data Manager as well. If we select the equipment class, we see the history symbol here as well. In the toolbar, we find a new toggle button with which you can show only the rows which have a history. To get a complete overview of all changes, a new view, changelog, was added. Here you can easily search for values, for example P002. We now see where this tag was used. If we now click on a record, we see the current data of the object in the Properties palette. You can restore to previous values in Plant Data Manager as well. If we switch back to the regular project data view, we see the restored changes as well. Of course, you can also manually change the values. Let's import those changes and create a new version of the drawing. If we have a look at the history in the Properties palette in Plant 3D or Plant Data Manager, we see that the changes are chronologically embedded between the versions and revisions. The changelog function gives you access to the change history of your project.
Plant Project Create enables you to create AutoCAD Plant 3D projects and drawings through other applications. Project and drawing properties can be set and updated as well. Basis is an Excel file which contains the necessary information for the project and drawing creation. As the first step in Plant Project Create, you define the path for AutoCAD and the drawing templates. Furthermore, you map the Excel columns to the project and drawing paths and properties. Through an application, the project and drawings will be created and the project and drawing properties will be set. We simulate this with a batch file. In Plant Project Manager, we now see the set project properties. Also, we see the 4 drawings with the set properties. Plant Project Create enables you to standardize the creation of projects and drawings. The rule-based block insert function allows you to automatically insert predefined assemblies based on your rules. The parameters you can use in the rules depend on your definition in an Excel file. In Plant Project Setup, you define the rules for the individual assemblies. As part of the rules, you define the position and drawing in which an assembly will later be inserted. Before the insertion of the assemblies, you will see a preview. This allows you to review the rules if needed. At the end, you click on Insert to bring the assemblies into the individual drawings. You have control over the inserted assemblies through the values in the Excel file. Rule-based block insert allows you to automatically generate standardized drawings.
The Off-Page Connector Manager is a completely new way of managing your off-page connectors. Within the user interface of the Off-Page Connector Manager, you always have a complete project overview. On one side you see the outgoing and on the other side the incoming off-page connectors. You can connect off-page connectors within the user interface without the need of opening any drawing. Multiple connections are possible as well. When connecting, the values of the properties can be carried over automatically. You can carry over any line and off-page connector property as needed between the connected off-page connectors. The connections between the off-page connectors are shown by connection lines between the trees. This makes navigating extremely simple. If you change values on one side, the values will be instantly shown as inconsistencies in Off-Page Connector Manager. The off-page connectors will be colored as well. The inconsistencies can be carried over with a simple mouse click.
Plant Clash Detection is a plugin which checks for clashes within AutoCAD Plant 3D. It considers AutoCAD Plant 3D objects as well as AutoCAD solids in the drawing or within blocks or X-ray. Detected clashes can be viewed by double-clicking. All uninvolved layers can be hidden. Clashes, which aren't clashes in the first place, can be set to be ignored so they don't show up in the future.
The renumbering function lets you renumber any property in your symbols. If you open the renumbering dialog, you can set the start value and increment. You can select how different classes should be handled and whether existing property values should be overridden or only unused values should be used. Last, you can select the property which should be renumbered. In this standard project, we use the tag property from which the renumbering function retrieves the property which will get the new values. After clicking Select, you start selecting the symbols or associated annotations. As you can see in this example, the numbers for the tag increase in a way to ensure a unique tag. The copy and paste function lets you copy property values from one symbol, line segment, or 3D part to other objects. The function is integrated into PlantExpressTools Properties palette. To use the function, start by selecting the source object from which you want to copy. In the toolbar, click the toggle button to activate the function. You will see checkboxes for the properties whose values can be copied. Check the boxes for the values you want to copy. You can even switch between the tabs of the Properties palette and check the boxes there as well. Once you have finished selecting the desired properties, click the toggle button again to switch to paste mode. Now, select the objects where the copied values should be pasted. At this point, no values have been pasted yet. You are only selecting the target objects. When you have finished selecting the target objects, click the toggle button again. The values will now be pasted. You can repeat the pasting process as often as needed. You can even switch to another drawing, select the objects, and click the button again to paste the values. To deactivate the function, simply double-click the toggle button. This video shows the in-place edit function used to edit the block of an assembly. We start by changing the PNID. If we now want to edit the block of the assembly using the Plant 3D function Edit PNID Objects block, we get the block, but we lose all context of the drawing itself. Hence, we don't really know how much to stretch the block. By using the in-place edit function, we can edit the block within the drawing and therefore still see the drawing.